All right, guys, we have got Champions League football here. The new format is here. The league system has begun. The league play of Champions League has begun. So I thought today I'd react to the entire history of the Champions League. And so let's get into this. Let's learn a little bit.
This is what the Champions League was like almost a century ago, and this is what it looks like today. So how did we get here? Well, it all started in 1954, when the English club Wolverhampton Wanderers beat Hungarian team Honvéd in a competition known as the Mitropa Cup. This victory led the English press to hail Wolverhampton as the champions of the world, but this just wasn't the case.
I wonder what that's like to hail your team champion of the world. I need my nice eagle sound.
This Mitropa Cup wasn't a serious competition, with few games being played and a small selection of teams in the tournament. After seeing these headlines, Hungarian reporter Gabriel Hanna just had enough, and he called for a Europe-wide competition to really figure out who was the best team. He brought this idea to UEFA, and just like that, the Champions League was born. Now, the story of the Champions League has 10 parts to it. Like the saddest day in Champions League history that saw all English clubs get banned for 6 years, we're even going to talk about the future of the Champions League because they want to...
Yeah, I know about that that sad day. I'm going to lower the quality here because I'm afraid this video is not going to, it's going to buffer significantly.
Remove the group stages and turn the Champions League into a Super League. But let's start from the first season. 16 teams, each champion of their own respective nations, came together to take part in the first edition of the Champions League. The format of this competition was very different to the Champions League we know today. There were no group stages, meaning it was a straight knockout tournament. Extra time and penalties didn't exist, so matches would have to be replayed in case of a draw. Prize money wasn't even a thing, so clubs just played for passion and prestige, and last of all, it wouldn't be called Champions League for a couple more decades.
They played for the love of the game.
So, for now, it was known as the European Cup. Now, let's talk football. Who won the first edition? Real Madrid. But they didn't stop there because they won the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth seasons of it.
So you're telling me that nothing really has changed when it comes to the Champions League? I'm still dealing with Real Madrid winning this thing. All right.
Real Madrid dominance was spearheaded by two legendary players, Ferenc Puskás, who scored a hat-trick in the 1960 final, and Alfredo Di Stefano, who scored 2 final hat-tricks in 1958 and also in 1960. This 1960 final saw Real Madrid...
It's so cool that we have footage of this stuff. Like, even though the footage quality is not the best, the fact that we have the footage is great.
defeat Frankfurt 7-3, which, to this day, still remains the highest scoring final ever. But Real Madrid weren't the only super team in this period, because there were a couple more clubs who were ready to write their names in history. The next 2 titles went to Benfica with the help of Eusebio, as they defeated Barcelona and Real Madrid in back-to-back finals. But they would soon find out what Italian football had to offer, because AC Milan and Inter Milan would take home the next 3 titles. This Inter Milan team, led by manager Helenio Herrera, was famous for its defensive catenaccio tactics, which literally means to bolt the door shut. As this era came to an end, Real Madrid would get one last hurrah, defeating Partizan in the 1966 final, marking the end of this Real Madrid domination, with Puskás retiring and Di Stefano having retired a couple seasons earlier. But the Champions League was changing fast, with new rules in place and new teams who were ready to conquer Europe. 1967 was an important year for the European Cup, as extra time and penalty shootouts were introduced, just adding to the drama of it all. This meant that replays were removed and the away goal rule was introduced, so if a match ended in a draw...
I'm familiar with the away goal rule. I believe it means that if a match is drawn, the away team gets the advantage, because I guess they're factoring that scoring goals on the road is a tougher thing to do, so draws are awarded to the away team. I think that's what the away goal rule.
After both legs, the team with the most away goals would go through. This era saw new team...
Oh wait, so it's the team who scores the most away goals after 2 legs. So let's say that you were away for the first leg, you score 4 goals. Okay, but you concede 5 at your home, you would lose on away goals. Even if the score, right? Even if the score was... Wait, how does that work? The math ain't mathing for me. I think I'm right.
Rise to the top. Celtic took home the trophy in 1967, making them the first British club to achieve European glory. The year after that, Manchester United beat Eusebio's Benfica 4-1 in the final. This Man United victory meant more than just a trophy, because 10 years earlier, this same team was involved in a plane crash, killing 8 of their players, meaning in just a decade, they rebuilt and fought their way to the top of football once again, thanks to players like George Best and Bobby Charlton. The next 2 years would see both AC Milan and Feyenoord lift the trophy, but the world was about to witness the start of 2 European powerhouses, Ajax and Bayern Munich. In 1970, there was a 24-year-old Dutchman playing in Ajax who was ready to take over football, and his name was Johan Cruyff. He led this Ajax team to 3 Champions League victories in a row, where the world got to witness a new style of play called total football. This was sexy football, with dynamic positions and a fluid play style that focused on attack and high pressing. In the 3rd year of their 3-year in a row, they beat out Juventus 1-0 in the final, and this was significant for Juventus as it was the start of a tradition they still hold today. This was the tradition of bottling the final, as they have the most final defeats in the competition history. They're like a European Tottenham Hotspur. Now, after seeing
Flag on the play. So this is really fascinating to get into the history of this great tournament. One thing I'm noticing in this video is kind of similar to a recent video that I did, and this one's fine. This seems like it's a well-crafted video, but it is going surface level into some of this history, and I totally understand that. You can't really pack the entire history with all of its nuances and its depth into a 24-minute video. So what I'm going to be doing is, in addition to watching this here on YouTube, on my Patreon, I'm going to be reacting to each Champions League final, and I'm going to start that series. Actually, by the time this goes up on YouTube, I might have already uploaded the first one, depending on how my schedule has worked out this week. But I'm going to be reacting to the game highlights, the game footage of Champions League finals, at least since starting whenever the footage becomes truly visible to see. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that, studying and learning the history over there on Patreon. If you fancy joining, it's at the $5 tier. That link's in the description.
Ajax's hat-trick of Champions Leagues, Bayern Munich got jealous. So they just went and did the same thing. With the colossal Franz Beckenbauer at the back and the lethal Gerd Müller up front, Bayern defeated Atletico Madrid, Leeds United, and Saint-Etienne to complete their own three-peat. But unlike Ajax, Bayern Munich's success was built on a rock-solid defense, as they barely conceded any goals and would often catch teams out on the counterattack. But at the same time,
look at that counterattack. Hopefully this doesn't get copyrighted on YouTube. Stupid copyright policies. Look at this.
Defeated Atletico Madrid, Leeds United, and Saint-Etienne to complete their own three-peat. But unlike Ajax, Bayern Munich's success...
Dude, this counterattack right here killed me.
...was built on a rock-solid defense.
Saved by the keeper.
...as they barely conceded any goals and
Bounce
would often
ball.
catch...
Boom. Boot that
teams
away.
out on the counterattack. But at the same time, now we still have 7 chapters left in the story of the Champions League, and Juventus have a lot more finals to lose. But before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to get to 100K subs this year, so I'd really appreciate if you
go ahead and subscribe to the channel, that's for sure.
Would subscribe and help take Top Bins to the top of football YouTube. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the insane rise and the tragic fall of English clubs in the Champions League. In 1977, Liverpool would kick off this era by winning their first Champions League, and then their second the year after that under iconic manager Bob Paisley. In the 2 seasons after that, Nottingham Forest would somehow Brian Clough. In 1981, Liverpool would return once again by beating Real Madrid in in the final to win their third Champions League in 5 years. This was followed by an Aston Villa triumph over Bayern Munich in 1980.
And this year is the first year Villa's back in the I think that's right. Is this the first year that Aston Villa is back in the Champions League since they won it in 82? Or was it 84? Did they go again right afterward? All I know is it's their first time back in the Champions League since the 80s. So I'm guessing this might be their last appearance there.
Which meant that for 6 years in a row, the European Cup went to an English club, which to this day remains the longest one-nation winning streak in the tournament's history. But all streaks must come to an end sooner or later, as Hamburg would break up the English party, beating out our beloved Juventus in the 1983 final. Liverpool would get one last hurrah in the Champions League, beating Roma on penalties in 1984, making it their fourth victory in just 8 years. I mean, this Liverpool team was unreal. Ian Rush, Kenny Dalglish, and Graham Souness really wrote their names in the history of football. But within one season, Liverpool would go from the top of Europe to getting banned for 6 years because of the tragedy that was about to unfold. The next season's final would see Liverpool come up against Juventus. Now, during this time, hooliganism was becoming a big problem in England, with lots of violence and fights between fans. But this game would see this violence go to a whole new level. The game was taking place in the Heysel Stadium in Brussels, and fans arrived excited to see their teams play. As they were led into the stadium, the opposing fans were sectioned in opposite sides of the stadium, except for one group of Juventus fans, which were placed right next to the Liverpool supporters. Before the game could even kick off, the Liverpool fans started throwing objects and flares at the Juventus fans. Some fans also jumped the fence that was separating the supporters and started fighting. These Juve fans tried to escape this section with the fear of what might happen to them, but with all the fans rushing to the bottom of the stand to get away, the stadium couldn't withstand all that pressure, and the wall collapsed just like that. 39 people.
It's absolutely horrifying footage. I've actually reacted to the actual footage, and I'm not sure if it's still up on YouTube. I think I might have taken it down. It was hard to stomach, hard to watch. Absolutely awful. It's something interesting too, because I'm coming from an American sports context. And something that people have repeatedly noticed about the way that Americans do sports is we never section off supporters. So you don't have an away section and a home section. I've never seen that other than at high school games. High school football games, which is basically, I mean, you've got roughly, to some high schools, 500, 600 people will come to a game. If you're in Texas, for Texas high school football, you'll get thousands of people to the games. But that's the only time in American sports that I know of where we section off home and away fans. In our professional sports and even in our college sports, as long as you buy a ticket, you can sit wherever you bought your ticket. And so you end up having away fans and home fans sitting together. I think the reason behind that is purely monetary. I think that these businesses don't want to have a situation wherein they have an empty away stand when they can actually sell those tickets. So they want to sell every seat in the stadium. And so if, one of the teams is traveling and they don't travel with as much support, but we can't seat home fans in the away stands, so it limits the number of tickets we can sell. And so I think that's probably the reason why they'll intersperse you'll look at the crowd, you'll see blue from the blue jerseys, you'll see yellow mixed in. Like, you'll see the different kits of the different teams sitting together. And yeah, we do have fights break out, but nothing, I've never seen anything like this happen. The closest I think I've seen happen was the Malice at the Palace Detroit Pistons brawl. But that happened, I guess there have been some things like that have happened. But for the most part, we don't have these kinds of tragedies happen. It might be just because we don't take sports as seriously. I don't know. I'm trying to parse out why there's a difference there. It does seem like it's probably safer to have away stands and home stands and have them separated from each other. Anyway, I don't know. I just went on a long rambling conversation. I'm very willing to be corrected there if you think I missed something about that. But
lost their lives, with the youngest victim being just an 11-year-old boy. 600 other fans suffered injuries, but managed to recover from them. Now, despite all this happening, the officials decided to allow the final to be played out, with the fear that canceling it would just make the situation worse. Juventus beat Liverpool 1-0 in a game that was surrounded in tragedy. This was the last straw for UEFA, as they banned all English clubs from the competition for 5 years. Liverpool.
That seems like a drastic measure to take. Instead of punishing the Liverpool fans for their actions, and even then that would be a small contingent of Liverpool fans. I doubt that all Liverpool fans participated, or even I don't know. That's history that you guys might need to educate me on. Maybe there was significant support for hooliganism at this point, but that seems like a drastic measure to take to put a ban on all English clubs from the tournament. But he did mention that there was a rise in hooliganism across the board in England, so maybe there's some reasoning behind that. You guys can, like I said, educate me.
Were banned for 6 years, and this era of English dominance came to a tragic end. Now, following the Heysel disaster, UEFA had to make some changes and up their safety standards big time by ensuring all stadiums were fit to host football matches safely. The ban on all English clubs meant there was room for new teams to rise to the top of Europe, and that's exactly what happened with the most unlikely of winners in Romanian club FCSB beating Barcelona on penalties in 1985. Porto and then PSV took home the next 2 titles, making for some great underdog stories, but AC Milan were ready to take over Europe once again. They won back-to-back Champions League titles with one.
There's the man. Marco van Basten, the 3-time Ballon d'Or winner, retired far too young. I think he was 28 years old. What a legend. Oh, and then we've got look at me making this mistake right now. I know this man. It'll come to me at some point.
One of Europe's greatest ever teams. Maldini, Rijkaard, Van Basten, and Gullit meant nothing could stop the Italian giants. Belgrade actually managed to win it the year that followed, which was yet another underdog story in this period. But to end the era off, Johan Cruyff returned to Europe, but this time he came as a manager with Barcelona, beating Sampdoria in the 1992 final. This Barca team had a couple of icons like Ronald Koeman, Michael Laudrup, and Pep Guardiola. But you're going to hear a lot more about Guardiola pretty soon. Now, this year was a turning point in European football because in 1993, the European Cup was finally going to transform and become the Champions League. So, besides the name, what changed? Well, the rebrand was done with the focus of generating more revenue, as UEFA turned the Champions League into a commercialized product. They added group stages, meaning more games would be played. They made it so that all matches on the same day would kick off at the same time, and the best part of it all, the English clubs were back. But they wouldn't really do much in the Champions League because the Italians were taking over. For 7 years straight,
I do remember learning about this. Early on in my journey in learning football, I did a month of reactions to Italian football and learned Italian football history. And this was a period in time where the Italians were really, really taking over with that defensive, just the great defenses of Italian football. I remember learning about Italians in the 80s.
final would contain at least one Italian team. 1993 saw Marseille edge out AC Milan to the trophy, but Milan would be back just 1 year later to thrash Barcelona 4-0 in the final. After that, Ajax would put a stop to the Milan dominance as they won it in 1995. 1996 actually saw Juventus win a final, but things would go back to normal in 1997 as Juventus lost yet another final, and this time against Borussia Dortmund. With this Juventus team, the world got to see Zinedine Zidane light the Champions League on fire as he was a key player in the team. Now, up until this point in history, the Champions League was actually a Champions League, with only the champions of each nation taking part. But in 1998, this would all change. There were talks of a European Super League forming amongst Europe's biggest clubs, which caused UEFA to respond by increasing the number of Champions League spots to 32, meaning that multiple teams from one nation would be allowed to take part. This meant more games, more drama, more goals, and this is the format that we still see today, and we're going to see for one more year, because in 2025, the Champions League will completely change. But we'll get to that soon.
We've already begun that.
Now
97.
this era kicked off with the return of European royalty. Real Madrid would win the Champions League in 3 out of the next 6 years with a ridiculous team. I'm talking Raúl.
That 1999, I just saw that there. That 1999, that was the final between United and Bayern Munich, where they scored 2 goals in like the last 58 seconds of the like it was stupid, like short amount of time they scored 2 goals in stoppage time to win that game. I reacted to that game footage on my Patreon. Can't upload it to YouTube. It'll definitely get blocked, but I did react to that highlight. I was blown away by how quickly and surprisingly United won that game.
Roberto Carlos, Luis Figo, and Zidane, who had just made the move from Juventus because he actually wanted to win a final for once, and he wouldn't just win, he won in style with probably the greatest final goal in the competition's history. In 1999, we also saw Manchester United return by scoring 2 90th-minute goals against Bayern Munich to win Sir Alex Ferguson his first Champions League trophy in the most dramatic way possible.
Cleared, Giggs with a shot, Sheringham! Beckham into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it!
Despite this, Bayern bounced back a couple years later thanks to the heroics of goalkeeper Oliver Kahn as they beat Valencia to the trophy in a penalty shootout.
Pellegrino denied by Kahn.
AC Milan won yet another title as Juventus lost yet another final in 2003. Poor Juve fans. This was followed by the arrival of the special one in Europe. Mourinho announced himself as one of the greats by managing Porto to a Champions League victory against all the odds, making for one of Europe's great underdog stories. But what was even more unlikely than that is what Liverpool did the year after. In the 2005 final, they were 3 goals down going into halftime against AC Milan. The game was over. There was no chance of a comeback, especially against this Milan team. But in the 54th minute, Gerrard bagged a header. Just 2 minutes later, Schmitzer made it 3-2, and just 6 more minutes passed till Gerrard won a penalty and Liverpool made it 3-all. The game went to extra time, and it eventually came down to a penalty shootout, which Liverpool managed to win, completing the greatest comeback in the history of the Champions League. Now, roll on 2006, and the mighty Arsenal came up against Barcelona in the final. An early red card to Lehmann posed a challenge that Arsenal just couldn't overcome. The brilliance of Ronaldinho and Samuel Eto'o.
Awesome. And Belletti! He squeezed it in!
Now, this Barcelona victory meant a certain Lionel Messi would pick up his first Champions League winner's medal. Even though he wasn't a part of the final, he was still a part of the squad throughout the tournament, meaning it counts as a win for him. Then, 2007 saw Milan get their revenge on Liverpool as they sunk the Scousers, winning 2-1 thanks to a brace from Inzaghi. This Milan team was quite special to say the least, with Pirlo and Gattuso in the midfield, Maldini at the back, and Seedorf, who had just won his 4th Champions League with his 3rd club, as he formed part of the Ajax winners of '95 and the Real Madrid team of '98 too. And not to mention the brilliance of Kaká, who finished top scorer in the Champions League, also picking up a Ballon d'Or.
What a likable guy.
This was significant because this would be the last time for the next 12 years that a player besides Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo finished as the top scorer of the Champions League or won the Ballon d'Or, because in the next season, this Messi-Ronaldo domination would finally kick off. But before that, there were a couple of greats in this era who just missed out on the Champions League trophy but still deserve a shout-out. Ruud van Nistelrooy, Francesco Totti, Hernan Crespo, Fabio Cannavaro, Dennis Bergkamp.
Cannavaro is one of the few defenders who has won the Ballon d'Or. I think that was what, 2000, was it 2006? Cannavaro won the Ballon d'Or as a defender. Yeah, that was an incredible campaign that he put on in 2006.
And the greatest of the lot, Ronaldo Nazario. All played for great teams in this period, but all just missed out on lifting the trophy. Okay, now the Messi and Ronaldo era finally kicks off. In 2008, it was an all-English final between Manchester United and Chelsea. Cristiano Ronaldo scored a goal.
Ronaldo!
Classic goal there.
Fine header.
But Lampard soon equalized.
Little break to Lampard.
After the 90 minutes, it was still 1-1. The game went to penalties, where Ronaldo stepped up and missed.
Ronaldo in the shootout will stutter, and a save from Petr Cech.
But by a stroke of luck, John Terry missed the penalty that would have sealed it for Chelsea, meaning Manchester United would lift the 3rd Champions League in their club's history, and Ronaldo would lift his first one. This United team wasn't all Ronaldo, though. The likes of Rooney, Scholes,
Wayne Rooney,
Giggs, Ferdinand, and Vidic all helped make this United team great. But just 1 year later, Ronaldo and United would go from champions to runners-up, as Lionel Messi, with the help of some greats like Henry, Iniesta, and Xavi, would sink United 2-0 under the management of Pep Guardiola. But I have to highlight a specific game in this year's Champions League, and that's the second leg of the semi-final. The Chelsea players just couldn't believe what was happening.
Further trouble.
But that's football. Sometimes these things happen, I guess. Now, the next season would see Messi and Ronaldo take a break from the final, as Jose Mourinho was back in the headlines with Inter Milan beating Bayern Munich thanks to a brace from Milito. Roll on 2011, and it's deja vu, with Barcelona against United once again, and Lionel Messi scoring to sink Man United once again.
Still Lionel Messi!
This is in the heyday, right? 2008 to 2012, where like Barca won every trophy they could play in. Like
Chelsea finally got their trophy in 2012, beating Bayern Munich on penalties.
Against Neuer. A new name on the trophy.
Okay, now 2014 was a crazy year in the Champions League. Ronaldo scored 17 goals this year, breaking the record for the most goals scored in a single Champions League season, which used to be 14 by Messi. And this final was dramatic, to say the least. A Madrid derby, where Real Madrid went on to obliterate Atleti with 3 extra time goals from Bale,
Save, but it's Bale!
Marcelo. But the year after that, Messi, along with his new friends Suarez and Neymar, would win Barcelona yet another Champions League, making this Messi's 4th and last trophy in the competition. And this final was against our beloved Juventus, which has basically become a free hit at this point. Now, the year is 2016, and Zinedine Zidane is back in the Champions League, but this time as the manager of Real Madrid, and he was about to lead Madrid to an iconic three-peat. A penalty shootout win against Atletico Madrid, a 4-1 throbbing of Juventus, and a 3-1 victory against Liverpool would cement this Real Madrid team as one of the greatest the competition has ever seen. Now, in 2018, which is the last year of the three-peat, we got to see Ronaldo score probably the most iconic Champions League goal ever in the quarterfinals against Juventus.
And then Ronaldo!
And in this year's final, we also saw Ramos take dirty play to a whole new level as he took Mo Salah down. This, coupled with a calamity of errors from Loris Karius, meant heartbreak for Liverpool fans.
That did look very dirty.
It's far more straightforward to Raul.
This would mark the end of an era of dominance from Messi and Ronaldo, as 2018 would be the last time either of them would lift the Champions League trophy, as Ronaldo ended with 5 and Messi with 4. But now there were some new stars in town that were ready to take Europe by storm.
By covering their eyes, we really didn't know who you were talking about there. Great disguise.
Now 2018 saw the introduction of VAR into the Champions League, which would be a controversial topic to say the least. This year saw Liverpool come back from their 2017 heartbreak to beat Spurs comfortably in the final, but the real drama of this season came in the semi-finals. Barcelona thrashed Liverpool 3-0 in the first leg, with Messi looking like he...
And then you had the miracle at Anfield. 4 goals scored at home. They took the corner quickly.
Was on track to win another Champions League. So a comeback.
I also have that game, the comeback of Liverpool over Barca at Anfield. I have that reaction on Patreon available there. Once again, can't upload it here. It uses so much of the game footage that it would get blocked, but it's over there on Patreon.
Back then, in the second half, Wijnaldum scored 2 goals in 3 minutes to make it 3-3. And then, with 10 minutes left on the clock, Liverpool had a corner and Trent Alexander-Arnold caught the Barcelona defense. The next year we saw Kylian Mbappe.
See, he even had to clip that. You see how that just skipped? That's copyright. You can't put that kind of footage on YouTube most of the time. It'll get flagged. So that's why I put that stuff on Patreon.
Make his way to a Champions League final, but get his dreams crushed by this insane Bayern Munich team with Robert Lewandowski in the form of his life. Because of the pandemic this year, the knockout stages were only 1 leg, but that didn't stop Bayern Munich from absolutely humiliating Barcelona and Lionel Messi in the quarterfinals with an 8-2 demolition. Dang. 2021 saw an unlikely Chelsea victory over Manchester City thanks to the brilliant Thomas Tuchel. 2022 saw Real Madrid back on top of Europe, defeating Liverpool yet again in the final as Benzema and Vinicius Jr. combined to make the deadliest attack in Europe. And as I'm sure you know, Manchester City completed the treble in 2023, beating Inter in the final thanks to their 12th man Lukaku.
See, this was the first Champions League final that I watched since I started watching the game. Yeah, I remember this. I remember this man right here, this lovely man Lukaku. I've seen him play a handful of times in the last couple years, and I've seen him have some really, really poor moments on the big stage, unfortunately.
Oh, Bernardo Silva's not going to get that. Lukaku! Straight after they scored, DeMarco, against the bar, and then DeMarco, and suddenly off the line.
Haaland was on fire this year as he's chasing down Ronaldo's goal-scoring record of 140 goals. Haaland already has 40, and he's only 23 years old. And this will become even more likely when you look at the future of the Champions League and the way its structure is going to change in 2025. UEFA have announced that they'll be increasing the number of teams from 32 to 36 and also remove the group stage format entirely by adding a league where the top 8 teams will qualify for the knockout stages and the rest.
All right, I'm caught up to date now. I'm familiar with this. I'm following the current finals that are results of the games that are going on now. I know that the league stage has finally opened up. So I'm following this pretty well. So, all right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking around. If you're still here, 34 minutes and 20 seconds into this video, barring whether or not I have had to clip out certain copyrighted materials. I don't know. 30 plus minutes into this video. If you're still here, I appreciate you. I want you to comment down below. Trying to think of something that you guys could comment. Oh yeah. Comment something about a certain team. Okay, pick your least favorite team, and tell me how they are salty. That's such a stupid thing. It's so stupid. What a terrible way to end this video. I'll see you guys in the next video.